Good morning, karibu sana. This is a morning cafe just a day after the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States. It is a new era, not just for American politics, but for the entire world as well. My name is Freddie Ndimule, karibu sana.
My name is Anne Odida. What are our expectations and will they be met? That is after Donald Trump's inauguration as the 47th president of the United States. So much in store for you this morning.
All right, quick look at the headlines. Tamtamu ya Mulembe. That's a big headline on the front page of the Taifa Leo this morning. Watu wanachukua tu machek pale. Wanaita bonus ya miwa. Waluya wamefurahi sana. On the Standard.
The Standard now, they say return of Sycophants.
If at all you've experienced politics between 2000 and 2013, probably you never saw these people. Yeah. Uhuru versus Ruto season 2. That's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation.
People daily, thousands of students risk missing out on bursaries, but the top story here is Trump's promise.
Yes, Trump 2.0.
Yep.
All right. On the Star.
The broad-based Ruto re-election political machine.
Too long a headline if you ask me, but then again, we'll be back to take a look at that whole issue. Matters business, private sector loans growth shrinks first time in 22 years. What does this mean for local businesses? And we'll be back to take a look at those dailies in a short while. Let's cross the border into Uganda. This is the Daily Monitor. Foiled robbery or execution? It's a question there on the front page of the Daily Monitor. Big news in Kampala this morning. 3 of the 6 suspected criminals that were shot dead by police on January 13th in a city suburb had no prior criminal record. The forces said, raising queries on why the suspects were killed merely on suspicion and not arrested. So the suspected criminals in the Kamwokcha shooting, at a glance, at least 4 of them, their images can be seen. There are others, probably of foreign descent, who were also killed by police in that shootout. Today, this is the only Ugandan paper we have. The poll reforms opposition parties want, yes, as Uganda gears up for the elections in 2026. Now you can start seeing some political headlines coming up. Opposition parties in Uganda ni wagani hao, tunajua tu NRM.
Yeah.
But there's a story on page 4 and 5 of this paper. Donald Trump makes it to the front page of this daily as well. Donald Trump on Biden upon return to the White House. So they say Donald Trump's inauguration completes a comeback for political disruptor who survived 2 impeachment trials, a felony conviction, 2 assassination attempts, and an indictment for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss. So that's a big headline. At least Trump makes it to the front page of this daily. And unfortunately, this is the only Ugandan paper we have. No, we have the other one, New Vision as well.
We do.
Oh, yes, we do.
All right, New Vision, again, Trump given prominence there. What Uganda expects. Now, trade relations, access to the U.S. markets expected to grow, protection of marriage values, Trump pledges golden age, and President Museveni promises closer bilateral ties. That story is on page 6 and 7.
And I think one of the points is very interesting, protection of marriage values.
Yes. Because
Uganda had been at loggerheads with the U.S., especially the Democratic administration over LGBTQ rights after passing that bill against homosexuality and such like things.
Yeah.
Now, this could change because President Trump has a totally different stance when it comes to those issues. He's already declared that there are only two genders.
Two gender.
Male gender, female gender, hiyo ingine ya tambui, pantambua. So yes, that for very many conservative Africans, and that's a majority, especially on this continent, it's probably some welcome news.
Besigye rejects prison food.
Right.
And 4 arrested over organ harvesting. That is on page 27 of the New Vision.
Interesting.
Yes.
Kuna watu wanatafuta pesa by hook or crook. Pale juu voters register update. You can see, you've been seeing many of the headlines from Uganda. It's education, health, or population growth and stuff like that. Now you're starting to see them getting ready for the elections.
Yep.
So that's interesting. I think it's Tanzania that you only have one paper today, and that's the Citizen.
Value of local farms drives Dar stock market growth. Now, the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange delivered a strong performance in 2024, marked by increased market value and trading activity that was driven by rising equity prices of major local companies. And we see 12.2 trillion Tanzanian shillings. Domestic market capitalization rose by 74%, reaching 12.24 trillion Tanzanian shillings in 2024, up from 11.4 trillion recorded in 2023. And the market's total value surged by 22.3% to 17.8 trillion Tanzanian shillings, including cross-listed companies. That story is on page 2 of The Citizen. And Watch the Throne, it's D-Day for Chadema chairmanship battle. Now, after nearly a month of intense debate and competition, today marks the decisive moment in the contest between Freeman Mbowe and Tundu Lissu for the position of Chadema national chairman.
Masuala ya siasa yanapewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili. Chadema getting ready, despite their wrangling, getting ready for the elections later in October this year. Another quick political highlight here.
Why Samia picked Nchimbi as running mate in 2025 election.
And that's a very interesting choice for Samia Suluhu Hassan, because you remember herself, she was President Magufuli's running mate. She ended up as vice president and eventual president, just like that. So it will be interesting. This man, the running mate Nchimbi, it means for him that he's just a heartbeat away. He will be a heartbeat away to the presidency as well. They make mention of Donald Trump's inauguration and the top strip, millions in the US to be deported as Trump is sworn in. Now, that is part of the worries that even many Kenyans who are in the US illegally have, and many of those who are hoping to actually make their way to the US, not necessarily in the right way. Now you should be concerned.
Chuma kiko motoni.
Chuma kiko motoni. Yes. Tanzania confirms Marburg case. This is a growing concern across the region. In Kenya, there have been a number of cases reported in Tanzania as well.
I think that is a third case in Tanzania as of today.
So a serious concern across the region in as far as health matters are concerned. So those are the regional dailies. We'll be back to take a look at the local ones in depth in a short while. Let's come back home and take a look at the weather situation. Today we start off in Kakamega because the president continues with his tour of the Western Kenya region. Ndio maana uliona pale kwa Taifa Leo anasema tamtamu iza mulembe. Promises to be a very sunny day today. Highs of 29 degrees Celsius. No chance of precipitation, but currently it is 14 degrees Celsius as we speak. The president is expected to host his cabinet for a cabinet meeting, probably at State Lodge in Kakamega. It will be the very first time he's coming face to face at a cabinet meeting with one of his CS who spoke about the abductions the other day. So what will happen? Will there be fireworks? I wish sometimes tunaweza onyesha tu kamera unakuja unaambia, by the way, wewe Muturi ulisema nini pale mbele?
Sounds like something he will see.
Yes. So Kakamega, that will be the focus of our news coverage today. Quite a sunny day from that end. The other place is Garissa.
Yesterday it was hot here. Highs of 36 degrees Celsius today. Lows of 24 degrees. Feels like 26 as at now. So it will be sunny throughout. Cloud cover will be witnessed as well. That is Garissa.
Garissa. In Eldoret, it's a very chilly morning, 12 degrees Celsius, but feels like 11. Also promises to be quite sunny throughout the day. Bit of cloud cover, but it's sunny throughout. Highs of 26 degrees. Very comfortable weather for Eldoret. Let's take a look at Malindi.
25 degrees. Feels like 27. That's hot. Highs of 31 degrees Celsius. There will be a little bit of precipitation there, at 20%. And there will be cloud cover throughout. Yeah. And a little bit of sunny weather there. So
for holiday makers, something not so bad, but see ile weather unaweza taka ya coast. Back in Nairobi, 17 degrees Celsius. As we speak, promises to be definitely a sunny day. Jana ilikuwa moto vizuri. Same weather today. highs of 27 degrees Celsius. This is comfortable weather.
28.
28. It's a kind of weather I enjoy. Yeah, mi huwa spendi baridi sana. And probably if we check out the continent tuone vile inakaa. A lot of cloud cover, especially towards the southern part of Africa, areas like Angola, Zambia, and Mozambique, Madagascar. So a lot of cloud cover there. Once you come up towards East Africa and especially Kenya, very little cloud cover. But over the Lake Victoria region, especially areas that border Uganda and Tanzania, a lot of cloud cover there as well. Other parts of Central Africa, Cameroon, Gabon, also experiencing quite some cloud cover. Oku East Africa, upande hii hakuna cloud cover. Uko dry. So that's in as far as the continent is concerned. So let's take a look at the traffic situation. All right, it is still very early. 10 minutes past the hour, nothing building up. Yes, Pangani interchange, the usual trouble spot, it's building up slowly. Nice stretch of red there, meaning watu wameamka. It is the same situation that you're witnessing on Juja Road as well. As you get closer to that Eastleigh junction, coming from Moi Airbase, a stretch of red there. But once you get past that junction, at least it's smooth all the way to the Pangani junction. Other areas include Jogoo Road, upande huu wa chini. Jogoo Road ni kama wamelala, but areas coming from Buruburu, you can actually see immediately after Buruburu, that whole area of Makadara. There's a stretch of red there. Once you get to Mbotela, another stretch, but it eases up once you get past the Likoni Road roundabout, because as you get closer to the City Stadium roundabout, there's nothing much to report there. A bit of traffic on Landis Road, areas around Mudhuru and Machakos Bus Station, but nothing to worry about. Haile Selassie Avenue today is looking comfortable. Just a bit of a stretch here around Marikiti as you go up towards town around this area. But ukishapita hapo, it is green. Pale around the Bomb Blast Railway roundabout, traffic is building up, but mostly matatus, but it's comfortable yellow. So nothing to worry about there. It's still early. Half past the hour, mambo itakuwa imechemka kidogo. Let's take a look at Mombasa Road. And you can actually see this is the Enterprise Road. Once you get closer to Mombasa Road, it starts getting busy. But the main Mombasa Road and the expressway all the way to town, it's looking green. A bit of red once you get close to, what do you call this, Pale Capital Center and areas around Next Gen Mall. I think there's an interchange or an entry into the expressway. But after that, it's smooth all the way into town. Nothing else to worry about. Langata Road is looking good. Southern Bypass 2, not bad. Inaitwa, what do you call this? Mbagathi Way. Mbagathi. I keep forgetting. But you know it has a different name.
Yes, Raila Odinga.
Raila Odinga Road, yes. Ngong Road, around Prestige Plaza, it's building up because of the lights. This, it's a barabara mzuri sana lakini, sometimes we inaleta shida kidogo hapo. And finally, let's take a look at what do you call it? Wayaki Way. Pale Kangemi, there's construction going on. Matatus are building up. So, na kuna part of the road which has been closed there. So, but nothing to worry about. And after that, even areas around Nairobi School, not so bad today. All the way into town, it's looking smooth. The CBD is ready for you. Amka uende kazi. Lakini pale wale wanatumia Thika Road, hey, you can actually see it's just a few moments ago, it was half of this. It is extending further backwards towards Thika Road. At half past the hour, we'll come back and take a look at this because there appears to be a problem there as well. So it is 1:15. What do we have?
Quote of the day.
Your life is your story, and the adventure ahead of you is the journey to fulfill your purpose and potential. Do not let fear write your story for you. Instead, let courage, passion, and perseverance guide your pen.
Right, let's take a quick look into the dailies.
All right, we start off with the Standard today. Return of the Sycophants is a big headline there. So they say, blind loyalty. Check quality of advice you get. These are the words of Mumias East MP Peter Salasya. Was very daring yesterday.
Yeah.
Standing on the same podium with the president and telling the president, watu wanakudanganya.
Yeah.
These are the words of Mumias East MP Peter Salasya to President William Ruto. If he wished to fulfill his pledges, with the MP claiming the men surrounding him tell him what he wants to hear. The story is on pages 6 and 7, and many people would wish that this is what the president gets to hear, because kuna yenyewe ni ukweli, kuna watu wanaongea tu fwa, but they're not really helping the solution. So we have, they're telling you that SHA is working, and I'm quoting Peter Salasya, they're telling you SHA is working when it is not. The new university model is not working. I know you have the heart to help the country. They don't want you to know the truth. That's Peter Salasya. And the president responded to him immediately. Akasema enda kunyorosha. But when you talk about sycophants, there are some suggestions here on the front page of the Standard. Sio mimi nimesema, ni gazeti imeandikwa na wale watu uko Standard. Wamesuggest hapa. Maybe these are the sycophants. So wanasema, kuna mmoja anaitwa Peter Kaluma, Homa Bay MP. William Kamket, Tiati. Junet Mohammed, Suna East, and John Waluke, MP Sirisia. Could this be the sycophants? I'm just asking the question because the headline reads Return of Sycophants, na ni sura zao zimewekwa hapo. Sasa mnataka niseme nini? Kwani mimi nimeandika gazeti?
And you know, Junet is quoted somewhere here saying, we are in government and we're not about to leave. We are not going back. There's nowhere else to go.
You know, there's a difference between being in government, supporting government, and being a sycophant. No, me, I'm using the word that Standard has used.
Yes, the Standard.
Sycophant. It's a Standard, not me. Hatuna gazeti hapa, Cape Media.
Hatuna.
Tuko tuna newsletter. Change of guard, of course, a mention of President Donald Trump's inauguration as a 47th president, getting some space there on the bottom of this front page. Donald Trump is sworn in as 47th president in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. yesterday. It was so cold, they could not conduct the swearing in outdoors.
-2 degrees Celsius.
Yes. Yes, he is a president now, the great U.S. of A. Government to recruit 10,000 police officers is another headline that features on the front page of the Standard. Interior Ministry says it is seeking funds to increase members of the service for the first time in 3 years. That story is on page 9. So if at all you've ever harbored ambitions of becoming a police officer, this is a great moment. 10,000 is a huge number.
Yes.
And probably many people would want to be police officers in Kenya.
Apelekwe Haiti.
Hata wengine walienda Haiti. Yes. Pale juu on the top strip of the front page of the Standard, why January blues may extend deep into 2025. Yeah, are you among those people who feel yenyewe January ndio tumefika date 62?
January inakimbia, tusiwekele.
Kwako inakimbia?
Inakimbia.
Wacha sasa ndio imeanza kuslow down.
It's
Today is
21st.
21st, yes.
It's because you're jinxing it.
Between now now and the end of January. Oh, I wish it. Do you know how many weekends are there?
Koma kabisa.
Do you know how many weekends remain?
2.
Yes. 2 more weekends. Today is a Tuesday.
Wewe.
Still have 2 more weekends before the month starts to end. So kama hujapanga budget ya weekend 2, just to know today is day 62.
But do you know it's salary week
January.
for other people?
For banks.
Yeah.
Sasa watapata pesa yao sahi by end of January hakutakuwa na pesa.
Hapana.
Why January blues may extend deep into 2025. CBK to fast track M-Pesa arrival. Gaza hostages freed as truce begins. And Bob Monroe leaves indelible mark. That story is on page 38, Matters Sports. If we flip the paper, they're talking about the Champions League. Yamal, symbol of rising Barcelona aiming for Champions League progress. Tonight's matches, a number of games being played tonight. Monaco hosting Aston Villa. Yani Aston Villa wanakuanga Champions League. Atalanta hosting Sturm Graz. Atletico Madrid hosting Leverkusen. Benfica hosting Barcelona. Svena hosting PSV. Liverpool hosting Lille. Bologna hosting Borussia Dortmund. And Braga hosting Juventus. Most of the games being played at 11 p.m. tonight. So lovers of the Champions League, something to look forward to this evening. And that's the Standard.
All right, Daily Nation, they say Uhuru versus Ruto season 2. Now, Gen Z Tiff, there isn't rapprochement between President William Ruto and his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta has taken a new twist after a public exchange of words cast doubts on their supposed truce, even as the former head of state's Jubilee Party ruled out rumors of a political deal. Now, you remember what former President Uhuru Kenyatta said last weekend? Nyinyi Gen Z, msikae tu hapo vitu zenu zinanyakuliwa. In the words of former president, not mine again.
Well, the panel I had yesterday kept insisting we're reading too much into nothing. It's not a big deal. He was just talking like a father would. But
the president responded. Now he made it a big deal.
Yes. Now, of course, if the president responds, now his sycophants, the ones being described on the standard, will say something more. Yeah.
All right, and Trump vows swift action as he is sworn in for the second time. Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th president of the United States by Chief Justice John Roberts, as Melania Trump holds the Bible during the inauguration ceremony. That is a photo there in the Daily Nation. He was sworn in at the Capitol Rotunda yesterday. Trump vowed to recognize only two genders, that is male and female, to deport millions of immigrants, secure retribution against his political enemies, and transform the role of the U.S. on the world stage. Again, you see, we have a lot of expectation as Africa.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
If he actually sticks to most of his promises, well, we are in for a very interesting ride over the next 4 years.
Something there on the top strip of the Daily Nation, funding for DP office up 164% after Kindiki moved in.
Oh, I thought it was one of those issues that were listed on Rigathi Gachagwa's impeachment. As him spending too much money renovating the office of the deputy president. It would appear that what was then an impeachable offense has become the norm now that there's a new holder of that office.
We will be there no matter what.
We shall be here.
All right, Odinga family partners in 120 billion Kenyan shillings housing project. Now, the project on a 285-acre parcel owned by the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga family will consist of 1,400 houses, commercial premises, and social amenities such as schools and hospitals. Is that a good thing?
Well, I have...
talk about schools and hospitals.
It's a whole community, but this whole debate about housing, I don't know. But the story is on page 14. Read more about it and make your own judgment. Have you talked about this story?
When love goes sour, the tragic end of 3 women. We have Winnie Akusuha, Lydia Tokesi, and Nancy Bonke, who is still anonymous. And 1 man in custody, another on the run, the 3rd dead after taking his own life. The aftermath of 3 murders, all the consequence of love gone sour, leaving the families of 3 women grieving and homicide detectives trying to build a case against the prime suspects. Investigations into the 3 murders continue as a 34-member task force established by President William Ruto and led by former Deputy Chief Justice Nancy Baraza starts its job of fighting against gender violence, including femicide.
Yes, stories on pages 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation. There's a big story there, matters gender-based violence. On the back page of the Daily Nation, KRA misses revenue targets by 163 billion shillings in first half. Remember, this is the same revenue target that's supposed to fund an ambitious 4.3 trillion shilling budget. Na pesa tumeanza kushindwa kucollect. Na tunataka kuongeza budget. Sema kuishi beyond your means.
Tunasahau sana.
Yeah. All right. So that's the Daily Nation. Tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Tamtamu ya Mulembe. Ruto akita kambi ngome za Raila magharibi mwa Kenya, akianzisha na kufufua miradi mbalimbali ya maendeleo. Pale tunaona Rais Ruto na baadhi ya wakulima wa miwa ambao walipokea pesa za bonus ya miwa. Wengineko wanasema tangu wafarakani na Gachagua, rais amekuwa akielekeza juhudi zaidi katika kaunti za Magharibi, Luo, Nyanza na Pwani. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili, unaweza soma zaidi kwenye gazeti hili. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Nyumba za shilingi bilioni 120 katika ardhi ya Odinga. Kidokezo zaidi, Gachagua achota wafuasi wa Kiunjuri, afanya usajili kabla ya kuzindua chama. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 4. Na Uhuru hana mwafaka na Ruto, asema Kioni. Anasema wanapanga kuungana na Rigathi, Matiang'i, na Tembea na Kalonzo. Habari hii kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Na bado habari ya Donald Trump pale juu. Kiapo cha Trump akianza urais, ahidi mageuzi katika siku yake ya kwanza, hafla yake ikivutia mabilionea. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 8 wa gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Haya, shike kasi sasa. People Daily.
Thousands of students risk missing out on bursaries. You know, I don't know why. Lakini tushasema Trump. Trump amesema promises. Yeah, we all know.
Tushaelewa.
Now, thousands of students risk missing out on bursaries. Governors yesterday converged pali at the COG offices, and they said there's nothing like schools for national. Let me look for that thing and quote it. But even as you wait for me to look for that,
as you look for it, I can continue telling them, because these governors, they're trying to fight for a share of the bursary money so that they can be disbursing bursaries to students. The argument is education is not a default function. It is a function of the national government. So there's always an argument, are they breaching the role of county administrations to try and do things that the central government should be doing?
Here we have it. Now, Johnson Sakaja yesterday said, there is no government function explicitly called school fees. Supporting the welfare of learners is a shared responsibility that requires collaboration. And he said, tutawaletea hawa wanafunzi, and he was telling Margaret Nyakango, tutawaletea hapo uwafunze if you don't want us to handle this bursary thing.
What do you think about this debate? Should county administrations be getting involved in distribution of bursaries? That's a big story there on the People Daily. Let's take a look at the Star. And today being Tuesday, it is a free copy of the Star because it comes with a MyGov pullout for government tenders and job opportunities. See the inside of the Star newspaper. Big headline there, a very long one. The broad-based Ruto re-election political machine. Gesema to Ruto's political machine or re-election machine. Big guns are drawn from nearly all the former 8 provinces, and President picks veteran politicians to articulate his vision and government agenda. So they focused on 2 pages, 4 and 5, just taking a look at some of the faces from across the country, from even Ali Hassan Joho all the way to Oparanya and Aden Duale, just some of the faces in President Ruto's government who are probably going to be part of his re-election political machine. Meanwhile, Wamunyoro, Gachagua's new command post. Before the impeachment, we didn't know much about Wamunyoro, which is a village in Karatina. Now Wamunyoro has become the center of a lot of politics from that region. More women than men get Inua Jamii cash is another story there. Pakistan's warriors fight for awareness. That's the Star this morning. Let's finalize with Business Daily.
Now, private sector loans growth shrinks first time in 22 years. Commercial banks lending to the private sector contracted 1.1% in the year to November 2024 on high borrowing costs, marking the first annualized dip since the Moi era in September 2002, when lenders cut their credit lines by 0.6%.
22 years. So something is definitely happening. Ukienda bank unaambiwa, we don't have money. Wewe huja qualify.
Yeah. Treasury revises 2024 economic growth forecast. Now, the Treasury has revised the 2024 economic growth forecast downwards following a slower than expected performance in the first 3 quarters and poor credit to the private sector. That story is on page 4 of the Business Daily. Hapo chini, we see new Trump era begins. Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th president of the United States by Chief Justice John Roberts yesterday. State cancels lucrative tourist insurance tender after backlash. The Immigration Department has terminated a controversial multi-billion shilling tender for the newly introduced compulsory medical insurance for foreigners visiting Kenya after local insurers complained of discrimination.
All right. Some of the highlights and headlines on our dailies. We finalize by taking a look at the cartoons. And this is the cartoon on the Standard. We have a guy with a very big tummy. And he's saying, he's looking at his laptop branded SHA and he's saying the system is down. Alafu hapa commentator anasema SHA nga. because Mkenya pale Wanjiko apigwa na butwa. The system is down.
Yeah.
Jana president aliambiwa hivyo akakasirika sana. Lakini the system is
It's down.
Yeah.
Sisi tuko pale
Ini
tunaona.
katuni ya standard, hata simi nimechora. Hiyo ni jamaa.
Lakini tuko hapo. Sisi tulienda tukaona.
The cartoon on the Star talks about what's happening in the US in terms of social media. TikTok was banned in the US. Whether or not it will make a comeback, it requires a court decision. It's a court that banned it. So the president might say one thing. He has to go through the judiciary as well. Yeah. So TikTok is banned there, and probably in Kenya there's been discussions on whether or not we should try and control social media with the new ICTCS, Bana William Kabogo suggesting that. That is what is captured on the cartoon of the Star. This is the nation.
The pot can never call the kettle black. Yeah, and we see Africa pale ndani.
Afrika pale ndani kuna jamaa kwa ndani ya ballot box anatik tu. Na pia Donald Trump anafanya mambo yake upande ule mwingine. So are we trying to draw comparisons in the electoral system of both America and Kenya? Are we saying there's a lot of manipulation in both processes?
Na kona pingu.
Na kuna pingu.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we can neither criticize the American, even as Africans, we cannot criticize the American democratic process. Neither can they criticize us, because we've seen even the flaws in their democratic processes as well. And finally, People Daily, the cartoon on page 10, Stano's take, anasema kuna safina pale, Gachagwa's Ark. Najua Noah's Ark, sahi ni Gachagwa's Ark. Anasema opening soon. So 2 by 2 will have to walk into Gachagwa's Ark.
Yeah.
Remember kuna chama inaitwa Safina tayari.
Yeah.
Is that an indication of ile chama tunangojea? These are just some of the big discussions. And we'll be having this with my analysts after the break. A number of MPs, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. We are hoping that Joe Mutambo, former MP Mwingi Central, as well as Gigi Kagombe, MP Gatundu South, will be joining us. Do stand by for that conversation.
And later on, we'll be having a conversation on integrating CBC at TVET for a skilled workforce. What will integrating CBC mean for TVET?
Right.
Mean for the workforce? That conversation we'll be having with Boaz Waruku, Policy and Strategy Advisor, and Lillian Kemunto, CBC instructor, later on after State of the Nation.
All right. And yes, we had promised that we're going to look at this area at 1:30. You can see the traffic around the Pangani interchange. For those using Thika Road, it has built up back all the way to the Mathare Mental Hospital. Just after the Utali Drift, that's where the traffic starts. For those using Kiambu Road, just before that junction to Amboi Road, just after, that's where the red traffic starts. So that's the traffic situation. Fika kazini haraka kama unaweza. Socials?
TV47 Kenya on Facebook and YouTube, TV47 News KE on X and _Dida.
At Fred in the morning.
The hashtag is Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1. He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
And will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
And with those words, the United States has a new president. Donald J. Trump becomes the new commander-in-chief. The White House is to have a new occupant, President Donald Trump returning to the White House on Monday with his eyes focused on what he says is making America great again as the 47th president.
Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end.
Even before settling down at the White House, Trump in his inauguration speech has announced a raft of changes his minutes-old administration is set to make. Trump promising he's set to sign a number of executive orders.
Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense.
Trump further outlining the top of his agendas is deporting undocumented immigrants and preventing border invasions.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy.
Also, Trump has announced there will be changes in policies, including issues related to transgender individuals in American schools. Already, there are concerns that President Trump may set aside Biden administration policies enacted to address climate change and support abortion rights, among other issues.
And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly.
Trump has made history by being the second president to serve one term, leave office, and then return to the White House. This is after defeating outgoing Vice President Kamala Harris in the presidential election held in November 2024. Moigi William, TV47.
It is definitely one of those stories that are making headlines on our front pages today. The inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th president of the United States. It took place yesterday in Washington, D.C. And this means a lot, not just to America, but to the rest of the world. Africans too, including Kenyans. We are very much concerned about what this means, the second term of President Donald Trump. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV47. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Allow me to welcome my panelists this morning. Beginning on my immediate left, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
And Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. Good morning, Karibu.
Thank you, and welcome viewers.
We do hope that one or two more gentlemen will be joining this panel, but we'll proceed with the discussion. Bwana Gakuya, definitely, even looking at our cartoons, they're making mentions of Donald Trump here and there. It is not a piece of news that we can ignore. We've seen how close William Ruto's administration has been to the Democratic administration in the US. Now that has changed. A lot of things, including that climate change discussions, including inclusivity, the language of inclusivity, issues around gender, all these conversations will change. How do you think, in your own understanding, this means for Kenya?
Thank you, Idemore. Allow me to salute the viewers, wherever they are watching this morning show from. And coming to the new dawn of American Church of God. First, let me appreciate that America has grown in democracy for a period of 250 years, and that's a big road mark. We have witnessed a lot of democracy handles in America, and I wish if all of us in this world scope could embrace that particular handle. We witnessed Trump being the president, and when the time came, he was beaten by Biden. He exited, and Americans found that, in fact, amongst in the last election, candidates that were offering themselves to the position, they found that Trump is the only person that they can trust to handle that veto country. The relationship between America and Kenya, let me say, they are very cordial, and there is a lot that we reap from America. One is that we have our trading relationship anchored under AGOA. Unfortunately, AGOA is coming to an end this year, and we hope that, in fact, the Trump regime will give it a consideration to renew, because I believe it is a very wide scope of business interaction. And number two is that Kenya started negotiation with America, and the beauty of it is that it commenced during the first Trump election year, which was between the former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Trump. And this trade negotiation is what we call STIP. This is Strategic Trade Partnership. And I hope before the end of the Biden's tenure, this agreement was not yet concluded. And I was on a bit worried that it might not see the light of the day. But fortunate enough is that considering that it commenced during the Trump regime, most likely it is not going to die. It is possibly going to survive. But there is many other ties that may be dropped, because we have an element like what we call the Haiti security soldiers from this country, which was not anchored under any international forces. It is not under NATO. It is not under UN. And that one is what I feel it may strip, because as it sounds very tricky that Trump may not buy the idea. And therefore, in that particular route, we may lose it. Many other areas, like we witnessed the president when he was invited by Biden, like 8 months ago, and a lot of goodies were being awarded to him. But I have not seen any realization of those goodies. Okay. Probably we may lose or we may get. Okay. That one hangs in balance. And what will matter is the now going forward, the relationship between us and the United States. Okay. It's unfortunate that I did not saw William Ruto recognizing the election of Donald Trump, because as other world readers were sending congratulatory messages. I didn't see William sending such a message. To me, that may be an injury to us, and it might affect us, because I think it is important to embrace whatever decision was arrived by Americans, even though at the bottom of his heart, he was purely democratic and was for the democratic way, but Americans had the say.
Granted, President William Ruto spent quite a lot of time building that relationship with the Biden administration through Ambassador Meg Whitman. And that was visible for everyone to see, culminating in that state visit. That was a huge one. But even on a personal level for many Kenyans, Bwana Manduku, and I think you have had an opportunity to live in the US, you know the number of Kenyans who are there. Most of them legally, but quite a number who are not properly documented. President Donald Trump has been very clear that such people will be sent back home. How do you see this affecting Kenya, probably in terms of diaspora remittances and others?
Thank you, and once again, morning viewers. When he was elected as the 47th president of the United States sometime in November last year, Donald Trump became the only second president to serve for 2 non-consecutive terms. The last one was a guy called Clever Groveland, who served both as the 22nd and 24th president. Americans called it the big comeback. Now, what does that tell us? It means that Americans had searched and realized that Trump, having served as the 45th president, was the right candidate to get back to office. And it was mainly because of his appeal on a very strict capitalist nature that the Americans elected him, hoping and knowing that he would make America great again. In fact, at his inauguration yesterday, he declared that this was going to be the golden age for the American nation. That means that Donald Trump will always look into America's interests first. Where such interests are threatened, he will not give a second chance. And in fact, immediately after being sworn in yesterday, he went on a signing spree of executive orders. Coming to Africa, I think what we should pray for is that any immigration reversals or policies should not affect our people. But then we also know that even if he says that he's going to deport non-documented immigrants, he's likely to face a lot of legal challenges. The American system is such that you must exhaust all the legal channels. And I don't think as a president, he would have all the time and energy to focus on that. What we should actually be praying for is that even as he comes in, we reenact and renew the American Growth Opportunity Act, the AGOA initiative, which had been created earlier and whose main or primary focus was to encourage industrialization and manufacturing in African countries for sale into the American markets. We should also be focused or worried about his belief or non-belief in the World Health Organization, because he has clearly said that he's not going to fund the WHO to the tune of $500 million a year, whereas China only pays $40 billion a year. And you know, WHO primarily serves or helps the poor countries like the third world countries, including Kenya. We should also be worried about his views on the climate action. Those are the things that immediately affect us: immigration, AGOA, the issue of climate, and then also we should also be worried that increasingly, and when he talked yesterday, he made it clear that he will not give foreign aid just like that. We as Kenyans would be most affected if foreign aid was curtailed, because we get a lot of aid through the USAID programs. But all in all, I think Donald Trump, having served as a president before, having gone through a trial in court, and having been a businessman himself, his focus will be on the growth of the economy, which ultimately will help our country.
Right. Allow me to welcome Gigi Kagombe to the panel. Gigi Kagombe is MP Gatundu South. Good morning. Karibu sana. We're just looking at the inauguration of Donald Trump as the 47th president and how that portends, what it portends for Kenya. And President William Ruto, one of his main agenda, especially in climate action, is really dependent a lot on the funding that comes from that direction. Now, the president in the US who's not really keen on that, what do you think, how do you think it will affect especially some of the policies that William Ruto has already begun?
Well, I think what we saw in the first term of President Donald Trump is that he has more focus on America other than other nations and other continents. And his main agenda in the last time, and you know his mantra was "Make America Great Again," was to really focus on making sure that Americans got jobs, because you know America had lost so many jobs to China and other nations in terms of manufacturing and all that kind. And his focus was really on making sure that jobs go back to America. And I think that is why Americans found it, as Mheshimiwa here says, that they returned him after for a second non-consecutive term. And I think we may find a little. I was worried a little about the policies of Democrats versus Republicans. And one of the things that, you know, we had an issue about was the Haiti mission. You saw that through the new emissary who is sent to Kenya, then they are supporting the mission. So the government of Donald Trump still continues to support the mission. So I am thinking probably we may not have as rampant and drastic changes in policy this time, and therefore on the issues of climate change and the help that we get from America, I don't think President Trump is about to get us into very drastic changes this time. Therefore, you know, maybe not increase, maybe we will not have other plans coming along, but I think what has been agreed upon, especially during the state visit, I expect that it's going to be seen to fruition.
Mm-hmm. All right. Time for us to take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe. When we come back to the local dailies. Return of Sycophants is a big headline on the front page of the Standard. On the Daily Nation, they talk about Uhuru versus Ruto Season 2. These are the headlines we'll be looking at after the break.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1. He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Freddie Ndimuli. I'm still in studio with MPs Gigi Kagombe of Gatundu South, James Gakuya of Embakasi North, and Daniel Manduku of Nyaribari Masaba. We now want to take a look at one of the interesting headlines on our local dailies, and that's the Standard return of sycophants. So who exactly are these sycophants and why are they returning? So they say blind loyalty. Check quality of advice you get. Now, these are the words of Mumias East MP Peter Salasia to President William Ruto if he wished to fulfill his pledges, with MP claiming that the men surrounding him, that's the president, tell him what he wants to hear. This story is extensively covered on pages 6 and 7. And one quote, the MP, quoting MP Salasia, said, they are telling you SHA is working when it is not. The new university funding model is not working. I know you have the heart to help the country. They don't want you to know the truth. And the Standard has gone ahead and even put some faces of some people. I don't know, are they saying that these are the sycophants? But all these faces here are your colleagues, Bwana Gakuya, in the National Assembly. Well, admittedly, we've been hearing quite some interesting comments from members of the National Assembly talking about 24 years for President Ruto as president. We can always extend, chest thumping and all this. And this is what the Standard is calling blind loyalty. Do you think this is a fair assessment of your colleagues, mostly members of the National Assembly?
Thank you, Ndimuli. And my comment on this is that it's in the public domain. When elected political leaders have kept lamenting very incisive statements, even in the presence of head of state. Sometimes you feel it's uncomfort because such kind of statement may be pronounced somewhere completely away from where the head of state is sitting. But when such statements are being made at the presence of head of state, and nothing is to be taken as if it is law, then that is along the election. Because this country is under one roof of constitution. And once it appears as if it has been applying on a double standard, then there is a very big mistake there. I would expect that all of us should either to be under one roof of the Constitution. And since we have, we know what's supposed to be done and what kind of statements can bring chaos to this country. I think some are completely unhealthy. But if you cite like my good friend from Baringo, Kamket, during the last regime, he was the biggest criticizer of William Ruto, including calling him very difficult names. Today, he appears on another face, now pretending now to be the one who has the key to deliver a president to 24 years. That is telling us this country may lose the path and move to what we call a banana republic if such statements are anything to do with it. Because this country is well known. It is 2 years term. If you serve the first one and the Kenyans decide that you have you have a mandate to secure another one. They are the one who gives you, because Kenya is a civil country where we always move to what we call an election, which determines who becomes the president. But if you find leaders jumping, telling public in the presence of the president that even though we are not going to make it in 2027, he must be there. That is telling us that, in fact, there's something else that you want to tell us, you know, more than what we know. That some statements are not fair. Because let us all remember that even the current incumbent head of state was elected to the position. And it was so bitter when there was a notion of trying to rig him out. And especially the action that was done at Bomas of Kenya at the last minute of his pronunciation to be the winner of that election. And if himself could not have expected anybody to do anything against his public will, then nobody should utter a word to go against public will. Because if the public decides today, I am no longer going to be the member for Embakasi North, that is their decision and it is their mandate as per the law. And they have the prerogative to make choice when it appears to an election. Let us not bro this country into those kind of statements that it may bring issues thereafter. We have a history of this country, and especially at the last Kimbaki's election, 2027, where this country almost went to ashes. And we would not wish to take this country back there. So it is very important for politicians to check and filter their words, wherever they are, no matter whether we would want William to secure his re-election. Nobody is against. But the button and the decision is only anchored under the Kenya's decisions.
Okay. Bwana Manduku, it would appear that your colleagues, especially in the National Assembly, are stampeding, running and stepping on each other, trying to get to the podium to try and praise the president, especially in his presence, behaving like court jesters, just singing praises. And this is very unusual, to have a member of the National Assembly get to the podium and actually try and tell the president some bitter truth, what you're seeing Peter Salasia, the MP for Mumias East, say. Do you see a risk in this kind of behavior by a majority of these speakers at presidential events?
Fred, I'm on record as having said that from where I sat, and having sat in the National Assembly now for close to 3 years, that the National Assembly, as currently constituted, was greatly compromised by the executive. What you're seeing here is as a result of that compromise. And it's good you've used the word court jesters. In medieval Europe, court jesters were hired to please the king during his time of relaxation. What we are seeing here with some of my colleagues is not very different. Let me tell you, there's a difference between loyalty and sycophancy. You can be loyal to the president and tell him the truth, or tell him what your people from your area are telling you to tell him. That should not be confused with being disloyal. You can be a sycophant, make people laugh, make the president happy, or so you think. But you're not effectively communicating what your people want the president to know. If I was William Ruto, I would be very worried that people are still talking about my waning popularity. And I should be addressing the areas of concern so that I can either keep my ratings at the same level or even increase them. Listening to my colleagues talking and not even knowing that these colleagues, most of them, may not be able to win the election back, is not good enough for the president. I know that His Excellency William Ruto is smart enough to know who is a court poet, who is a jester, and who is a serious legislator. Luckily, there are more than 400 of us. There are close to 400 of us in both National Assembly and Senate. And those that are doing this gesturing are less than 5 to 10. So majority of the members are actually working and delivering on their core mandate. But having said that, Fred, I think as leaders, we should always be firm and forthright. And where possible, tell the king that he's naked, because it helps him, it helps us, and it helps the country. And if our interests if our common interest is to serve this country, then we should be able to face him and tell him, Your Excellency, this and this is not right. I don't subscribe to the method taken by my friend Peter Salasia, because normally when the president comes to a region, we have leaders meetings. And normally it's a closed door scenario where you list the concerns and the president takes them seriously. But when you come to the podium, because you want to get some, as the president said, claps, then again, you are going against the spirit of collective responsibility. Because the ultimate aim here is to help him understand the issues so that he can deliver to all Kenyans. I guess we shall see more of this as the days go on and as we get closer to the elections.
More of what Salasia did or more of what the Sycophants?
The Sycophants will continue until 2027. Yes.
All right. But Gigi Kagombe, what's your take on this? Because after 2002, after President Daniel Moi left office, this kind of behavior disappeared for quite some years. We did not see Mwai Kibaki and having people just praise him blindly on any presidential podium, but it seems to be making a comeback. And we wonder, okay, what is so different now? This is 2025. We should have really moved on from such kind of behavior.
You know, two things. First, it's very interesting that we decide, you know, Fred, I've heard someone say, once I was told by someone, be very careful what you say with your tongue, otherwise you could just attract what you say. And most of the times, people will tell you that when you say something negative. But when you say you want to be a billionaire today, you don't become a billionaire tomorrow. So I don't know why it is that when people who are opposed to the government and who are opposed to the president, when they say must go, we don't say that he will go. It's not taken that now they are saying he will go. But when someone says to Rafaya 24, then it becomes a very big deal because they said a very big deal. Both of them are two scenarios that oppose the Constitution, because the Constitution says you serve for 5 years, then after that, then we do another election, and if you get another 5 years, you get it. So if someone says must go today, it doesn't become a problem. But when someone says, okay, we'll do 24 years, it becomes a problem. That's number one. Number two, you will get your chance, Honorable Gakuya. No, Honorable Gakuya, just hold your horses. You will get your chance to speak.
Continue,
I've been quiet here listening to you. Number two, you find that there has been a very interesting scenario since this government came into power. You know, there are people who believe that certain leaders or the president or a government must come in through their hands. And the people who have not accepted that the government is constituted as is. And therefore, politics of division and politics of, tribal politics and very negative politics came into play very early into this government. If you look at what happened in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, until the 2005 disagreement between Kibaki and Raila Odinga, there was relatively some calm. If you look at the time between 2012 until 2015, there was political decency and decorum. Right now, where we find ourselves between 2022 and 2024, or 2025, where we are, is that we got a lot of movements happening. And therefore, when people like Gakuya decide to take to the podium and, outrightly start their politics, then there will be people. By the way, you must understand that there's a dichotomy in politics. And what you're finding is that a lot of times when people move, we have seen people who are in the opposition now have now come into government, and people who are in government, Akina Gakuya, have now gone into opposition. So people are taking positions because the dynamics of politics changed. And therefore, pronouncements would be expected. The people who are, if you look at the standard, these people, all of them who are on this side as sycophants, are not members of the Kenya Kwanza coalition. They are all members of the opposition. They are people who vied under the Azimio la Kenya, Azimio la Kenya.
Probably that is what is causing the awe.
Yes, because
these are the ones doing it.
Because what happens is that we have serious seismic changes, and therefore people are coming from this side, and people are taking position. I think what I would say is that there's formation of new alliances being formed, and that is no secret, it's a public secret. And Fred, we must understand that for every action, there will be a reaction. So when people from government move and start criticizing the government, and then people from the opposition find a chance to be on this side, people are taking position.
I'm trying to get clarity of information, what you're saying. Are you agreeing or disagreeing with this headline that says there's a return of sycophants? Do you agree with that headline?
Well, I don't. Well, it's a good way of putting it. If I were the editor, I would put it like this so that I sell my paper.
But you do agree that there are sycophants.
I would. I mean, you know, I've told you I've been in the newsroom. Mm-hmm. This is something I would write. You know, because it's good itself.
Beyond selling the paper.
But I don't agree with you. What I think is that we have become very political for no reason. And I think everybody in the political scenario is all looking for likes. And I think we are all looking for dopamine. Everybody wants to, you know, Salasia, as Honorable Manduku says, had a chance to say what he said, but he chose to the podium, to play to the gallery. And when you decide to play to the gallery, then every side is going to go to play to the gallery. So, I mean, and I think it's fair game. Okay. When we have the kind of politics that have been practiced by a section of the UDA leaders represented here, it is fair game that the people like Kina Kaluma, by the way, if you look at the sentiments of Peter Kaluma that make him a sycophant, as the paper says, are issues that he's responding to Gachagua and those kind of people, yeah? Okay. So it is fair game.
Okay. But probably let's take a look at it differently, Bonagakuya. And as Manduku said, back in medieval times, people would be hired to come and make the king happy. And the podium right now should be said to belong to the president. It is his space. And if people choose to make him happy in his presence, is it such a big deal? Probably it is what should be happening. That the president should be made to feel that, and these people are right in singing his praises. During Moi's days, I remember one Peter Olo Aringo saying, calling the president then the Prince of Peace and other very poetic words. And what is so wrong with that?
Manduku, I have no problem with making the king happy. The only bad notion in this case is where there is an incitement. That's only where it's wrong. But making the king happy, I believe that is one's decision. And nobody, including myself, I also need to be happy. Because being happy, it means you may also make yourself an addition of a day or two in your life. So that's to me, and that's why everybody else in the whole world needs a peace of mind, even to listen to music, because music gives you some comfort, and at least you relax, and you forget most of the disturbances that actually carries with you. And in this case, I would say there is nothing wrong to making happy. It's only that let us filter our words when we are making such statements to make the king happy. Yes. There are words that you can use to make the king happy, but you should not incite people to a particular level where you may fuel this country to another situation.
Okay. And to catch the president's eye, it would appear is the intention of most of these people, that you want to be seen to be the one with the most stinging words against the president's opposers. That is the nature of what your colleagues in the National Assembly have adopted, that everyone wants to impress the president. But question is it really wrong?
If you want to impress the president or anyone else for that matter, you're better off having factual statements. For example, the president is currently in Western Kenya. And there's something that has happened in this country that people don't seem to know. For the first time in as many years, this country is having a surplus of sugar production. But none of these characters talks about that. Now, that is what I would say. For the first time, cane farmers are getting a bonus, which we get in the tea sector. That is what you should be talking about, because this is supposed to be a development tour. And I think if you leveraged on that, the positives, the things that affect the ordinary man or woman in that area, then that way you'd start attracting the presidents here more than court gesturing. Because there are so many of us. So if we all went and gestured, so who will be the ultimate court jester?
All right.
You should be asking the president to invest more in sugarcane production, to invest more in the factories, and have your facts right, and talk about numbers, how to grow from this to that. Probably that is what is important when you're in such meetings, and that has a bigger impact than coming to do court gesturing. I liked what Mr. Milemba said about teaching, about teachers. He didn't just say that, he should have also said that teachers now need an increment in their salaries because teachers are very grossly underpaid. But I think those are the things that we should pick up and talk about in such meetings.
All right. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard, return of Sycophants. And whether or not you agree, it is there. And they say the president was told to his face, check the quality of advice you get. And that came from none other than Peter Salasia, the MP from Mumias East. Of course, he got a quick response from the president. Akaambiwa ndakunyorosha kidogo, ushike laini maneno. Anyway, let's move on to a different headline. And this involves one of the constituents of Gigi Kagombe, constituents number 1 in Gatundu South. And Uhuru versus Ruto season 2, that's a headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. There was a similar headline yesterday and the day before, coming from some comments that the former president made, which attracted a response from President William Ruto as well. So they say this is Gen Z tiff. The recent rapprochement between President William Ruto and his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta has taken a new twist after a public exchange of words cast doubts on their supposed truce, even as the former head of state's Jubilee Party ruled out rumors of a political deal. The story is on pages 4 and 7 of the Daily Nation. But Bwana Kagombe, we saw President William Ruto come to Ishaweri. We saw the two gentlemen sit down together. After that, we saw some 3 members being co-opted into President William Ruto's cabinet, and it was generally understood that these were nominees or that may have come from the former president. And by that time, people imagined that everything between the two men was okay. Now we see such headlines. And are we reading too much? I know you're a huge critic of some of these headlines. Are some of these headlines misleading? Are we misreading what President or former President Uhuru Kenyatta said? Yet we saw a response from President William Ruto as well.
First of all, the said statement was made in my presence. It was at the Nairobi Chapel on Ngong Road. It was at a family event. They said Ngena is not the Ngena that everybody is talking about. It is not Ngena Kenyatta that President Uhuru Kenyatta was referring to. It was at the burial of Kefadhi, who is a cousin to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and it was a family issue. This thing has been taken completely out of context because I had been there for that burial and I stayed from the time we came from the mortuary to the time that we went to Ishaweri for burial. And the context of the sentiments was purely a family affair. The Gen Z he talked about is the daughter of the deceased, who was Ngenda Kefadhi.
Just happens to share a name with
Yeah. Just Ngena. There are many Ngenas in that family. And therefore, it was completely out of context. I was shocked to see, actually, I remember a colleague member of parliament called me because I had told him that I'm at that burial. And he asked me what has happened. I'm seeing clips going around. What has happened? What has the former president said? I told him it has, we have the ability and the culture of misquoting people, because once something is taken out of context, and it is you've seen it all the time. I was, the other day, I saw a clip of apparently Kalonzo Musyoka joining the Ruto government. You remember? Yet it was a clip that had been for Kalonzo Musyoka joining Uhuru's government almost 10 years ago. And now it was used and it was choreographed in a way to show like Kalonzo Musyoka had come to join President William Ruto. You understand? It's the same thing. It has been completely taken out of context. And I think by the time the president, I have actually not listened to what the President Ruto said in response, what has been said to be a public outburst or public sentiment against or towards Uhuru Kenyatta. I haven't listened to it. But even if there was such a thing, even he may have taken this out of context. And therefore, the issue of the truce, or the issue of, the peace that we had seen between the two of them and the visit to Ishaweri, if you ask me, and that spirit is still in former President Uhuru's mind, and I think nothing has changed. But I think we know ourselves as Kenyans. We know what we like, and it's always news when a man bites a dog, and never news when a dog bites a man. And therefore, we are looking and searching for these negative things to come, and I think we are praying and wishing that Kenya goes down, and we are wishing for all bad things. And I think
perhaps
it's
it's the response from President William Ruto that has really fueled this kind of discussion. If at all it was out of context, and such a delicate relationship having only been rebuilt in recent weeks, do you think that most of these leaders should be a bit measured in reacting? Because we saw even CS Duale reacting directly to President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah, I think I would say it's unfortunate that this thing has been completely taken out of context. And you see, again, in politics, by the time, misinformation moves a lot faster than the truth. So by the time, if you don't react to it, then, and politics is not really reality. A lot of times, it's perception. Perception is everything in politics. And if you let misperception proceed and you let it go uncountered, then it becomes something else. And we have seen in the past such misconceptions going forward and shaping our politics. So I think in politics, you cannot just sit. You won't allow your opponent to just sit and propel some narrative, and you just sit and watch. So I think we need to be a little more civil in our politics. And the civility that has been exercised in the last few governments, I find that there's a disconnect around this time. And most of this comes from, and it's coming from both sides. Because I don't want to sit here and lie that only one side is responsible for it. And I think the appeal I would have on all political leaders, actually not just political leaders, religious leaders, and every media practitioners and media leaders also, because we have an audience, and a big one at that. I think we need to exercise caution and be a little more, just civil with each other.
Okay.
For the sake of this country.
And one would have imagined that for a relationship between such gentlemen at that level in this country, because they are the only two who've served in that position right now, that President William Ruto would have been a bit measured, probably give a call to his predecessor and ask what exactly is happening, because we've already had this meeting. But it would appear that President William Ruto and his team are a bit too jittery, quick to respond to each and every perceived criticism, which even when Kagombe says probably it was taken out of context. Do you think that is a risk there, that the president may be too jittery about his political opponents or perceived opponents?
Thank you, Edimori. My take on this is that the former president, even taking consequences that he has taken his retirement, that does not mean that he fails to enjoy the rights he has been given equivalent to any other citizen of this country by the Constitution. He has those fundamental rights. So therefore, making a statement as an advice, I cannot find it as an awkward statement. Telling Gen Zs to fight for their rights, what's wrong with that? To me, Edimori, that is saying we have arrived at a situation where there is a totally different direction where young people are facing serious, ruthless kidnapping. And if they fail to raise their voice, who will raise the voice? So telling them to fight for their rights, that's clear.
You feel that is what Uhuru Kenyatta was talking about.
At the time we are in, we're in a time that actually it is a difficult time when young people are well learned, well skilled. There is no jobs. Calling for the creation of jobs, that's not, to me, it cannot be seen as a negative notion. So when the president, the former president, indicated that, fight for your rights, who else will fight for their rights? And it was very clear that our age, it can be out of the hoop, but you are the people who are energetic. So keep those to fight for your rights. And I don't find it anything wrong, because youth has a duty. If they want to have future in this country and remain mute, they may not achieve it. They should not keep being told that they are leaders of tomorrow. They must be the leaders of today. And therefore, they must fight for their space. And this one, I have no problem with it. And I cannot be able to take the advice by Uhuru as any incitement to the young people. It may be taken negative by anybody who would want to take it and to blow it on a different angle. But to me, it was a pure advice to the young people.
Okay. What is your take on this matter, Bwana Mabuko? Because
Fred, I want to slightly give a second opinion or a different opinion. When you have served as president for 10 years, there can't be anything out of context. There can't be any accident. Your words will always be taken seriously, whatever the fora. I also want to remind Kenyans that what the former President Uhuru Kenyatta said was actually something he had said before. I remember sometime about 6-7 years ago, attending a meeting where the president then warned about a ticking time bomb of the youth bulge. And so what he said a few days ago is exactly what he had said before. But then, from where I sit, if there was ever anyone to apportion blame on the challenges we are facing with our youth today, then that blame would squarely fit on the former president's hands. Because when he served for 10 years, to the best of my knowledge, there were no deliberate programs to try and mitigate the effects of the youth pulse that we're having now. And so President William Ruto inherited a problem that had been growing over time. The last regime did not have deliberate programs to create youth employment, whether locally or abroad. Did not have deliberate programs to empower youths. And if those programs were there, they failed. You remember during the NYS scam, you remember the youth fund, it was underfunded. And so he cannot now turn around and point his finger at William Ruto, and yet he himself had the best option. And don't forget, Fred, and
so you feel he was actually pointing a finger at William Ruto?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Don't forget that Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed 10 trillion shillings. And most of the problems that William Ruto has inherited are born out of the big debt that we have as a country. 70% of our taxes are repaying debt whose investment we don't see. When you look around this country, you can't see where 10 trillion shillings went. And that is something that Uhuru Kenyatta should be answering us if we are serious as a nation. Rigathi Gachagua once told us, when he was deputy president, that they inherited empty coffers. And so there was no way in 2 years this problem would have been solved for any reasonable person. And so I think in as much as Mheshimiwa Kagombe, member for Gatundu South, says that it was out of context, within context or out of context, a former president's words are serious.
Okay. And a quick look at just a plain read of the headline, the way it reads, Uhuru versus Ruto Season 2. I'd like to draw your attention to another headline that was there yesterday in the same paper, Daily Nation. Still talking about the former president and his alleged connection to an individual who would be running for president against William Ruto. That's Fred Matiang'i, the former CS. And many people, probably some critics, said that probably this is going too far for the Daily to try and draw a link between the president's intention or otherwise. Do you agree that probably some of these headlines are too far-fetched and probably meant to ignite some thought over here?
I agree that I think, just like I said, we seem to be looking at every opportunity to sell negativity, and I think negativity really sells. I've been telling you that a lot of us seem to be just doing things for the likes, you know what I mean, so that we are competing on who has the worst news to break. But that said, I just want to say that it is something that is very interesting, and I've realized that a former president has to be civil with a sitting president. If he lacks civility, then it's a recipe for chaos. We have seen, I have been here, we have seen a retired President Moi, we've seen a retired President Kibaki, and a retired President Uhuru. And if you look at the two predecessors of President Uhuru, when they left government, they completely went into oblivion, only to be seen in news when probably the president has gone to visit them at their home while they have no political opinion and they just walked out. We seem to have a difference. And if you remember the words of Atwoli when he was a supporter of President Uhuru Kenyatta, it's him saying that Uhuru is a young person, hakuna mahali anaenda. You know, right now when we hear William Kamket saying 24 years, then it becomes a problem. But when it was Atwoli saying that ni kijana mdogo, he's not going anywhere, then we took it differently. But I say I think what is propelling and fueling this kind of headlines is Uhuru Kenyatta's conduct and behavior. He has decided completely not to be civil with President William Ruto. Even his right from the get-go during the campaigns, his involvement in politics. If you remember, President William Ruto said many times, "Nuachie huyu mtu. You just stay kando. Let me just deal with my opponent."
But you just said that even in retirement, he's not been civil with the.
He has not been civil. If you remember, let me tell you why he's not been civil. If you remember, we forget very easily. If you remember the issue, do you remember the issue of tear gas at Kileleshwa when there was a wrangles in Jubilee, when Sabina's faction and Uhuru's faction were fighting over situations? I mean, even the act of a retired president and deputy president, and whole act that just governs how the president will retire, says that he should and must retire from active politics. For him to be fighting for a party, to be a party leader after the fact, it was actually lack of civility and what we expected of a retired president. For him to come and make sentiments that we've seen about during the inauguration or during the ordination of Bishop Simon Peter Kamomoe and Wallace Nganga in Lavington at St. Mary's, for him to say, "Oh, this government, mutaona, oh, wezi," those things, that's completely, because as Honorable Manduku says, he's been president for 10 years and his words will be taken seriously. And I agree with him. Even I agree with him that a former president is a former president, and his words. And what we've seen over time is that former presidents do not make pronouncements often because they're not political. So when he makes a pronouncement, it's something that the media will pick, everybody will pick and want to say, what is he saying? So I think there has been excessive lack of civility on Uhuru's part. That's number one. Number two, we must not forget that the problems we find ourselves in are purely orchestrated by one man from my constituency. He is the actual problem. He is the one, that man, and I apologize to the nation on behalf of the people of the Gatundu South because of the atrocities that we visited on the economy of this country. You know, the opportunities that we had, what President Mwai Kibaki had achieved, went completely to the drain. We went on the rampage at the expense, at the expense of the economy. Uhuru was very eager to make a name for himself, such that he undertook projects, took so much money, and forgot that there were people at the center of it. And most importantly, what we needed was an economy that could support our young people in employment. If you look at, and I want to show you facts, economic facts.
I'd want us to focus more on his conduct after retirement, because that's what
they're inseparable.
Because those two issues, in his 10 years.
Fred Ndimuli, those two issues are inseparable. Why Uhuru Kenyatta is behaving the way he's doing is because he looks back and sees what he left in his wake, and therefore he's this lack of peace, this jittery behavior is because he knows what he has done in the past.
But Agakuya, do you agree that the former president has not conducted himself probably the way he should have after retirement?
I would completely distance myself from the sentiments of the member for Gatundu South, and especially as far as the conduct of the former president after retirement is concerned. Because Uhuru has been mute and silent, and I don't think it has anyhow directly interfered with the current regime. What I would say, the current regime even lattered to the former president when they vigorously pushing to him to a manner that he was evading to pay taxes and he had to pay. Whether there was exemption or not, those kind of issues. But himself, I have not seen him overstepping any mandate to a level that, in fact, he can be seen directly poking to the current regime. And making such a statement does not mean he's anyhow trying to injure the government. And I did repeat that, in fact, even though he's retired, he still enjoys his fundamental rights. You cannot, as the former president, have no duty to speak for his nation at any moment. He should remain mute because he's a retired president. This is not the case. And therefore, I would say, in a single moment, that Uhuru will feel that the country may be not moving to the right direction, he has equal rights like any other citizen to call out that mess and to say, here we are wrong. Let us get back to path. Because he does not call any other country his home. He calls Kenya his home. And he cannot just keep watching even when things are heading to the negative direction. And therefore, I would say, as much as the former president has his as goods and pros, it does not mean that as a human, that everybody is excellent. And therefore, whatever probably during his regime he didn't achieve, that is why we moved to an election with various number of candidates who competed, setting their blueprint to until Kenya thinks that this one is capable of making sure he collects the mess. So we cannot keep blaming the former every other day. And that's why the chance was given to the current regime to collect and make sure that they drive the country forward. Okay. But not always keeping on repeating this was because William Ruto was part of the government. He was the deputy president then, and he served well his first good years. It's only his last term when we can say there was a handshake between the former prime minister and Uhuru Kenyatta. It's only when we can say probably things went wrong somewhere. But during the whole tenure of 10 years, they have been in one government. So let us not keep always blaming the former, because everything was done in the presence of the current head of state.
Yes, and according to this administration, the problem has always been Uhuru Kenyatta. Yes, a quick one.
Just a minute, a quick one. You know, I did not do this headline. But when you see a headline saying Uhuru versus Ruto, do you ever see a headline saying Moi versus Kibaki after Moi left? Did you ever see a headline saying Kibaki versus Uhuru? It wasn't. What I'm saying is, and you know, this is not the government saying. This is not the government saying that blaming Uhuru. It is the media, because they can see. It is legible, and the media is not involved in politics. They're just seeing things and reporting.
Okay.
Isn't that what is happening?
Do you agree that probably
I can't say that the government is blaming the previous government?
It should be, it's questionable.
I think what was expected of former President Uhuru Kenyatta first was to relinquish his political affiliations by stepping down as chairman of the Azimio coalition and specifically the Jubilee Party. In fact, as late as yesterday, his Secretary General, Jeremiah Kioni, was still talking about Jubilee Party and former President Uhuru Kenyatta. We'll stop talking about Uhuru Kenyatta the day he relinquishes his political affiliations, which is a best practice when you retire as head of state. And that is why you didn't see a headline, Moi versus Kibaki, or Kibaki versus Uhuru, because Kibaki stepped down and went into retirement. Secondly, the former president has a channel to give his advisory to the sitting president. He would call him for a cup of tea and give him advice. It's expected, but not through public utterances. And that is why he will always be in the headlines. If he doesn't relinquish his political posts, if he is seen to be the silent hand that is always trying to propagate other candidates to challenge William Ruto, and if he does not make his utterances, political utterances in public, we expected Uhuru Kenyatta to take up philanthropic causes. Look at former President Jimmy Carter. In fact, it's always said Jimmy Carter enjoyed his retirement more than he enjoyed his presidency. There was another American president who was called Taft. He enjoyed his legal practice and ultimately became head of the Supreme Court after retirement as president. It does not make sense that the former president is still interested in politics. And if he's still interested, then we'll continue talking about him. And we'll continue muddying his name.
And you mentioned what the Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli had talked about earlier with regard to the age of the then President Uhuru Kenyatta. Do you think that is what we are suffering currently, that you have a fairly young retired president who's still active physically? Do you think that is what we are suffering?
Yes. From? If you remember an interview that was done on Uhuru Kenyatta by Richard Quest, and he asked him, will you retire from politics when your term comes to an end? And if you play that clip after this, you'll see that he was actually hesitant in responding. He actually did not give a direct response to Richard Quest. So what you're suffering from, and this has been orchestrated from a long time. This is not something that just came. The reason Richard Quest was asking that is because he had seen right from 2013 that there was signs that Uhuru Kenyatta doesn't want to leave politics in the normal traditional way that we know. By the way, President Uhuru Kenyatta has been discussed in Parliament on whether he should be enjoying his retirement benefits and whether he meets the requirements of the Retired Presidents Act by being politically active. This is something that is very unusual because we have been a country of culture and a country of traditions. And the tradition, as we say, is that there has been that retirement. And those sentiments, by the way, started way before the election of 2022 with the notions of do we extend the constitution, do we blah, blah, blah. There was even, remember, there was BBI that apparently was supposed to bring in a premier And there was speculation that Uhuru Kenyatta was making a position for himself to be the premier. You know, there has been, you remember there was talk, huge talk. I want to jog your memory and remind you that there was a big talk about what has been happening in Russia between Putin and his friend. I can't remember his name. Yes, yeah. And we're saying that there was probably BBI. And that is most of the reason, one of the biggest reasons why BBI was given a hit was because, in as much as they had very many positive things, because people are saying we do not want to do a Russia and a Putin on Kenya. So what you're seeing here, and I've said, it is purely lack of decorum and civility on the part of Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay. If it has to do with age, then probably we're facing the same issue with even the current president. If he was even to serve his 2 terms, he would still be fairly young. Way younger than the first 3 presidents that we saw. Jomo Kenyatta, President Moi, and even Kibaki, they all retired, at least the second and third presidents retired at a very advanced age. If we're saying Uhuru Kenyatta retired too early, President Ruto could also retire very early, at a very tender age. Are we setting ourselves up for more trouble from retired presidents?
Indimuri, what I would like to take my panelists back is to the concept of the constitution that we have, which does not criminalize any governor who is a retired governor to quit politics. We have seen governors coming back as senators. He may also desire to go for a member of parliament position, which the law does not criminalize. And the same case, I have not seen any caveat in the law which has given the head of state a different mandate after retirement. In this case, it is an individual feeling. If you feel that, in fact, you want to retire and you completely retire out of politics, it's well and good. Don't forget that we have a retired prime minister who is enjoying his retirement package, who is Honorable Odinga. Odinga is in active politics every day. But in the law, he's a retired prime minister who is enjoying his retirement package. Nobody is discussing about it. We have a retired vice president, Kalonzo Musyoka, who also is enjoying his package for retirement. And he's in active politics. So let us not try to look the constitution on a double edge. Let us look at holistically as it is and interpret it as it is. And if retired President Moi did not revert to politics, that was depend on his age. He retired at the age almost 90. Kibaki retired at age almost 90. Those were old guys. And most likely, they, in their own capacity, they feel that actually they want to retire completely. In this case, I am not seeing, I cannot start to say that William Ruto, as a party leader of the current party, is going to quit after retire, because it is not anywhere. It's not anywhere clear, directed by the law, that he has to. He may retain to be a party leader of the party. It's only that he cannot contest to a president after serving 2 terms. But the law does not say that he cannot become another holder of another position after retirement.
Okay. Look, on that issue of age.
I think age and its perception is purely an African thing. If you look at across Africa, we have many presidents who are above 80. We have Paul Biya. We have the new president in Namibia, Mumba. Our neighbor, Museveni. We have Ngwema. All these are guys who have been in power and now they are octogenarians. And so we always have this perception that you're still young, even below the age of 80. But the reality is that at 80, you're actually an old person. Except for America in the recent past. Most civilized countries retire their presidents very early. We had people like David Cameron, left office at a very young age. And you don't hear of them. They went back into consultancy. And so in Africa, And it's actually our mindset that we believe age comes with wisdom. And it is very difficult for us to let them go, and even for themselves to voluntarily say, okay, I'm now old, let me go home. And that's why we still have BAMBA running at the age of 80 for an African seat. If it was the Western world, that wouldn't happen.
But in America, we're just seeing old men running.
And I've said, except in America for the recent 2 presidents, generally, you need young, vibrant people to do this.
Right.
Because it takes a lot of energy also. And so when William Ruto retires in his 60s, and knowing him, we expect the same to continue.
Same headlines.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Let's take a break now, and we come back, we give our final thoughts and probably discuss one more headline about the president's preparations for 2027 as highlighted on the front page of The Star. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of
Welcome back as we finish this edition of Morning Cafe this morning with my panelists MPs James Gakuya, Daniel Manduku and Gigi Kagombe. The Star on the front page reads, the broad-based Ruto re-election political machine, basically looking at the lineup in cabinet that was initially, and under the new constitution, initially intended to be full of technocrats. But we are seeing now that out of the 22 cabinet positions, 16 are now occupied by politicians. And according to this paper, this is intentional because President William Ruto is working on his 2027 re-election campaign. Bwana, so many things have changed in this cabinet. This cabinet has undergone an overhaul, not once, not twice, enough times this past year. Now we're seeing so many seasoned politicians making a comeback. People like Mutahi Kagwe, who have inspired confidence in terms of his communication of government policies previously, now being given an opportunity to serve. The co-optment of people from ODM. And do you think the president has gotten it right by including more politicians as he gears for a re-election in 2027?
Thank you, Maureen. My take in this is that every sitting president, after analyzing the political situation, must find how to get out of a particular scenario. And in the current situation that this country was, and especially after the clamor of the Gen Z, and the drop of the withdrawal and the drop of the Finance Bill 2024, I think the government was somehow shaken. And as a president, there was a pressure because actually there was a disconnect between him and his deputy then. And now there is now this a new saga which came out very strongly. And as a president, probably he looked to his cabinet. And because there was now that demand by the Gen Z to reshuffle his cabinet, and he found it fit to use that particular window to shape the country to a manner that he can realign himself for a proper machinery for his re-election. And it is very true. The broad-based government, in his inner mindset, was purely a re-election machinery. Because how can you move out of the path of the Constitution, which guarantees the majority and the minority, and you want to mix them today to make it one roof of government, completely shutting out any window of wisdom that you don't want anybody who can criticize your government. And that's why you want to swallow everybody and take him to bed. And that, to me, was it was a clear gimmick for him to align himself to look for a stronger machine which he can rely come 2027. And it is true. Okay. But what I would tell you is that as much as this machinery somehow may give him some plus, the determination is the ballot. And I can tell you for sure, Kenyans are much ahead of us. And I can tell you for sure, you may try any gimmick politically to make you survive, but you might get it wrong. So in this case, I would say, and especially the last concluded appointment of the three giants from Mount Kenya, that one I will keep repeating, that the score politically is 0. He may score something from elsewhere, and there's 2 constituencies that I would like you, Dimoni, to be very, 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 very much concerned of. Today, if I were William Ruto, I would think, how do I deal with this youth constituency? Because that one is a time bomb. And I can tell you, no matter whether you delay IBC to delay their registration, if you are going to give them a room of just a month or 2, they will register. Because it is their right. I will register. And I can tell you, if you don't make comfort with them, you must know what could be the answer come that particular time. So you may bring these giants, but in fact, these giants may not be able to align themselves to this young generation. The one who can be able to solve a problem is the one who can solve the problem of this Gen Z. Okay. That one can give you a clear.
It's a necessity of having politicians in cabinet, because if it is service delivery, technocrats could also do a good job. So what is the problem? Why the need for politicians in cabinet?
I've always advocated for a parliamentary system of government, precisely to solve this problem. If you remember, one of the key proposals in the Building Bridges Initiative was to revert to a system where cabinet secretaries or ministers would be picked from parliament. And the reason is very simple. The government has got 99% technocrats. In fact, from the level of the principal secretary all the way to the clerks, those are technocrats. What you need at the top of the pyramid are people who understand the political terrain to advocate for your policies. It is difficult for a technocrat who has never been a member of parliament to understand the intricacies that go hand in hand with the development. Technocracy is about sitting on the table and pushing policies. Politics is about explaining those policies to the people. And this is what William Ruto has lacked. He has realized that for him to be effective, he must have people who can articulate effectively what he's planning to do and what he's doing. And that is why he has reverted to politicians. Even more worrying, it is credible information that after the AU elections, he's going to fill up all the other positions with the politicians. So come 2026.
Which other positions? PSs?
all the other remaining cabinet positions, come 2026, everyone in cabinet will have served either as a member of parliament or as a governor, precisely to deal with the issue of acceptance. Most technocrats don't read the pulse on the ground. And so when they come to your constituency, there's a difference or a disconnect between the local populace and what they purport to be bringing to the ground. But politicians are able to do that. I'm not saying that because I'm a politician, but I'm saying that because I've worked with some of these technocrats in the previous administration, and I could see that they didn't understand what they're supposed to tell the people on the ground. And let me tell you something. Every president, including William Ruto, once you're elected in office, or every leader for that matter, including the three of us, the next thing you think about is your re-election. If you're not planning to ascend to another office, you're thinking of your re-election. And so you must put strategies in place that will guarantee you a smooth re-election. And that is what William Ruto is effectively doing.
Okay.
And with this kind of machinery, I can tell you, he's still going to be a force to reckon with.
Yes, yet according to Bwana Gakuya, the president is still yet to cover the Gen Z, the youth bulge that probably could be a risk for him come 2027. Do you think this, the kind of lineup we're seeing on the front page of the Star, will do the job in as far as getting the youth population to see it William Ruto's way?
Gakuya has his Embakasi to worry about, Ruto has his Kenya to worry about. So everybody is doing their strategies, and I have my Gatundu South to worry about. Everybody has his strategies on re-election or the position that he wants to go. If Gakuya wants to go for the seat of Governor Nairobi, it's his prerogative. He should be concerned about that. So the strategies that everybody puts in place is purely, this is a game of numbers. It's a game. You know, politics is a game. Nobody is certain about an election. So we cannot sit here and say, oh, your strategy won't work come 2027, mine will work. I mean, we will see when that time comes. That's number one. Number two, the Constitution only changed the parliamentary system of government and said that for you to serve in the cabinet or for you to serve in the executive, then you must relinquish or you must not be a serving member of parliament. That did not effectively say that you may not have served as a politician. You know, and there's nothing wrong with getting a former, and that's why someone like John Buddy and everybody else who's been appointed, even Murkomen, once you've been appointed, then you have to relinquish you sit. It doesn't, the Constitution doesn't say you must not have served as a politician. You must not have served as a parliamentarian or any other position. No, it doesn't say that. It just says that while you're serving in the executive, you cannot serve consecutively as a member of parliament. Purely that. And I want to agree with the Honorable Manduku that, you know, politics, and I don't know why we like to pretend, yet we know the reality. The politics, the reason why why communities say that we want to be represented in that government, the reason why our political system has the dichotomy that you find all the elections that we have had in the recent past, and especially under the new constitution, you find that the contest is always at 45% against 51, 50 plus 1 against 40 something, 45, 44, 46, around there. You will never find that there was 30%, that the second run, the first runners up was at 30%. We have not seen that yet. So you understand that we have a serious dichotomy. We are almost split at the middle. It's always a very tight race, meaning that there are people who feel that they want to be represented in government. And why we want to be represented in government is because politics, as I was taught at the University of Nairobi, is the science, the art and the science of division and distribution of resources. So we are there. Why I am the member of parliament for Gatundu South and in parliament is to represent the people of Gatundu South and to make sure that resources, from the national resources, get to those people and try to pull as much as I can to my people. And he will do exactly the same to his constituency, and Gakuya the same. So what we're saying is, people feel represented and people feel better representation by names that they know. I mean, we have seen technocrats, even in the Uhuru government, even in the Kibaki government, in the Ruto government, we have seen technocrats who have been unable to connect with the ground because they don't understand the terrain. They don't understand even the language that they speak when they come. You know, you will find John Badi going to his people and elucidating government policy. And guys look at,
But we've seen some impressive technocrats, people like Fred Matiang'i, Professor George Magoha, who served in cabinet as well.
You know,
we're
being
not politicians per se.
you know Fred being a technocrat and being a politician. So you don't become a politician once you get into politics. I mean, I was a politician way before I was elected in 2022. I've been a politician. So if you give me a position in cabinet, I am a politician. Being a politician doesn't mean that you don't just become a politician because you serve. And you know, we have politicians on the pulpit, we have on the pulpit, we have politicians everywhere. I mean, Manduku was serving as in the housing in government before, and he was a politician.
Well, you're all politicians, so you're speaking about politicians doing a better job.
I want to remove this notion that you only become a politician once you're elected. Because Matiang'i is a politician. Matiang'i is now, you've seen it. You have just earlier on during this interview.
Now he wants to venture into politics.
Yes.
Previously,
not wants to venture. He's a politician. He's been a politician. Magwaha, who served as the vice chancellor, and you know that when I was at the University of Nairobi, was a politician.
All right.
For all intent and purposes, he was a politician.
Okay, and our time is up, gentlemen. Asanteni sana for your time here at TV47. Gigi Kagombe, MP Getundu South, James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, and Daniel Manduku, MP Nyaribari Masaba. Our panelists this morning on State of the Nation, right here at TV47. A quick look at the headlines this morning. Return of Sycophants, that's the front page of The Standard. Uhuru versus Ruto Season 2. Reads like a movie title. And the Star, very wordy headline, the broad-based Ruto re-election political machine, talking about big guns drawn from nearly all the former 8 provinces that are supposed to rally the president's campaign for re-election come 2022. This has been State of the Nation. Asanteni sana. After the break, a discussion on integrating CBC and TVET for a skilled workforce. Boaz Waruku and Lilian Kemunto will be having this discussion with my colleague, Anne Odida. Do stand by for that. My name is Fred Ndimuli. Good morning.